There's so much I know about lobster, and the funny thing I tell everybody is I hate seafood. I won't eat it. For me to stare at lobsters for weeks is like the dumbest thing in the world to me, but here we are, and then we have a line out front. What's up, GQ? This is Dion Point, creative director for Concepts, and this is my life in sneakers. I grew up in Brockton, Massachusetts, a very long time ago, probably before any Jordans were on the shelves. It was a little bit of a rough and gritty neighborhood, I'd say, so getting sneakers wasn't necessarily the easiest course of action for us. So I probably got my first sneaker when the Sky Jordans came out, which was the 1985 edition of the Jordan for smaller feet, which I still have, like a size 9 right now. That kind of gave me the appetite for sneakers, but then I wouldn't get another Jordan probably until the 11. So it was a grueling path for sure, trying to be a sneakerhead back then. There wasn't necessarily the insatiable appetite there is now, so you could actually go in and buy a shoe, maybe not even just the day of. You had a couple of weeks. The Jordan 1 in particular, some Decathlon Sports I think had them for as low as $20. Times were tougher back then. I don't think people had the deep pockets that they do now. Kids are wearing like Balenciagas to high school. That's wild to me. Oddly enough, I read about A-Life in a GQ article, and I was like, what the hell is this store? It's a library, what is it? So I booked it to New York and checked it out, and I was like in awe. But I didn't know what Concepts was at that point. I was still going to New York to get all my sneakers. We were doing 125th, hitting every store in New York because they had a different offering, wider assortments, things like that, crazy 95s, things like that. So I was going up there buying, everything I get my hands on. And then I found out about Concepts. I found out about Concepts at a baby shower. Some kid had the acorns on, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Where'd you get those? Of course, the thing you say when you're from Boston is I got them in New York. It's your way of basically brushing people off, like you're not getting what I got. So lo and behold, my brother called me. He was like, I saw the store that they have the acorns at. It's in Cambridge. I'm like, Cambridge, Massachusetts? Like, yeah, it's in Cambridge. So we headed over there and we were like, what is this? They had Year of the Horse, Air Forces, Viotech Dunks, Bo Jacksons. They just had this weird assortment of shoes because they had a higher tiered account. And I was just blown away. And then from there is kind of where, nature took its course. It was like going to a thrift store, like it was exactly that feeling. Because you walk through this mom and pop store that had like Birkenstocks and Minnetonka and all these shoe companies that a lot of people aren't familiar with. And then you get in the back and there's just rap music blasting and it's reeked of like weed and incense and you're just like, what is this? How did I find this? And then I never told anybody about it. I kept it to myself, I fell in love with that store, I spent all my money. I couldn't make that trip up every week and there was so much stuff coming out that I just couldn't keep up. So that's when I offered to kind of come on like as a part-time gig. So I work on the weekends. Sometimes I would come in my construction clothes, change in the back and work on like a weekday. But again, I wasn't doing it for the money. I had money, it just was like, I just needed to get my access to these shoes. But he was letting me buy the shoes at cost. So of course you're gonna buy 4 pairs of something. Not that shoe, I couldn't get 4 of those, I wish, but I had 3 of them. For those that don't know, this is the Neapolitan. Cherry on the tongue, it was no-brainer. This is probably at a time when color blocking was minimal, so it made sense. Our allocation was probably super light. We probably got 12 pairs of this for the shop. In playing fair, this is before line culture still too. You're seeing them show up in magazines from Japan. You're like, what is that shoe? No clue it's even Stussy. Probably traded at 1.5 or 6 other sneakers to get one of these. And this was before the equity was there, so this wasn't a $5,000 shoe. Probably a few $100s back then, Everybody that wants to work in sneakers, it's always like, I want to come in design, I want to do this. But for us, it was always like you had to start in the stock room. So we would memorize SKUs. I knew like by heart color codes and all that stuff. I just nerded out on it. I kind of like being back there better than on the floor. Then, natural progression, get on the floor. That's when you start meeting reps and people from brands. And I think that's how the first opportunity came about for us to do a collab. It was 2007 with New Balance, part of this Super Team 33 structure that they had. It was like us, A-Life, 40 LA. There's a lot of groups that came in. And to this day, my biggest mistake, it was the worst shoe I've ever worked on. Every time it pops up on like, someone's trying to give me props, I'm like, please burn that shoe and I'll give you a new one. Like, I hate it. You live and you learn. So this, I think, is one of our favorite New Balance that we have ever did. This is called the C-Note. If you're a real New Balance head, you'll notice there's something different about this. I'm not gonna say anything more than that. We kind of did it with this dusted toe box for a reason. We knew that once they kind of got worn in, people would probably want another pair, and we kept the market pairs low. I wanna say we did maybe like 1,000 or something with these. For whatever reason, like the purists, they are constantly hounding me to like bring these back out. And it's just kind of like almost a grail for a lot of kids that are into New Balance. The New Balance heads, they need everything structured the right way, what factory it's made in. I mean, they're like aficionados. Here, I have not worn yet. You know, Virgil, there's not enough good things you could say about him, but there's just so many subtle little details he puts in all his product. He just got the Midas touch. It's not on everything for me, but especially with the forces, I think he realized that sometimes less is more, and I think this is perfect. And I honestly would have never worn all baby blue shoe in my life, even though it's one of my favorite colors. Blue top to bottom is crazy, and it just works and makes sense. This one here, the reason why I brought this, because it's actually, we're full circle, we're in Miami right now. My friend James Whitner and Frank Cook sent me these, so this is one of the shoes that's like close to my heart. I know they go for a lot of money. I wore the pink ones into the ground that they sent me, but they launched these in Miami at Art Basel. I want to say, if my math's correct, 2018. Even though it might look just like, you know, muted colors, kind of low key, this is absolutely one of my favorite shoes. I need a special reason to rock those. So that's one that's not getting worn. I'm a Jordan 1 junkie. That stems from obviously the Sky Jordan. So I keep as many pairs of these as I can. The originals, the black and red and the black and blue. But so these come along, they're just easier to get, a little bit pricey, but they're still not as pricey as having the OG. So, and I thought the details were cool in the marketing. Last but not least, if I could reach this here. I don't think anybody's seen this in person yet. This is the White Lobster. This is friends and family only, so it won't be for retail. But I wanted to share this with you guys because I thought it was cool. This is extremely lazy. I'm not gonna lie to anybody. So the reason why I picked this color for friends and family is because it's so minimal pairs. They found an albino lobster. There's also one with these crazy hairy claws that's like prehistoric. The story wasn't there for me. I couldn't do anything with it. And I was like, if there's gonna be one shoe that's limited that won't kill people to not have, I'm like, white might be the easiest to cope with. You might have to correct me, but I think this is our 7th rendition of the Lobster Series. The first one came about, you know, us trying to do something cool with SB, trying to pitch a project to them, and they were at that time infernal hot. So they weren't really listening to anything. Even though we were one of the first accounts in the entire world, if not the first to carry SB, it doesn't mean like we just got to streamline to the president, you know? We had a few ideas that kind of failed before that they weren't really rolling with, so Lobster came about. And then that's when I kind of started working on the Blue Lobster immediately. Pitched that to them, they were like, no, we're not doing it. Then I got the call like 6 months after this drop, the red one, that we can do the blue. We survived the sophomore jinx. It was more so like, what are you gonna do after this? I think it's a little lazy for us to continuously do this, but the reality is the consumer wants it. We're all wearing renditions of the same sneaker anyway, so what's the difference here? If you have an Air Force or Uptown, you got in 50 colors, what's the difference if I do 8 colors of this? But for the real problem is, how do I sell it to you? How do I market it to you? How do I tell you this isn't the same story? And that's where I kind of started looking into Dali and all these things in the art world, and then how Lobster works in art, if it's a still life painting, if it's this. They put me in this rabbit hole, and I'm like, you know, I don't come out for like weeks, and then I open the door to my office and like, I got it. And that's when kind of all this around you came about. So that's when it becomes fun for me again, because yeah, this isn't really fun for me to just pick colors. And then I have to Google, like, is there a real orange lobster? They found one, his name is Cheddar, it's a real thing, look it up. For everybody think I'm making it up. But yeah, I'm pumped on this one, I like it. And orange is one of my least favorite colors. For me personally, I think I work on all the packaging, the storytelling, the marketing plan, almost the same time as I'm submitting the shoe, because I have to have a framework of how it's gonna come out, how it's gonna roll, and how it's gonna be different than the last one. So it's become a little bit of a painstaking process to top the next one, you know? Us going above and beyond and creating this immersive experience, it's just the evolution of footwear, right? Because how do you keep the excitement there if it's not just colors? I think it's cool for them to be able to explain it to their friends and family too, of why they waited in line or why they went through hell. For me being an avid storyteller in my personal life, it translates over to product, and I like to be able to, you know, hopefully share that with the consumer. Thank you guys for watching My Life in Sneakers. I hope to see you guys again soon.